This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Sixth round in, and no driver has managed to finish in the top 5 more than 4 times. Despite this, the gap to our points leader is looking like this week's race could be decisive. A poor finish could give a glimpse of hope to Gasper's rivals. Another win will make it nearly impossible to run him down in only 2 rounds. In typical fashion for the series, just when some people could use a little unpredictability, we arrive at Charlotte's brand new Roval. Fast and fraught with danger, it could easily turn things upside down. We'll see what it all winds up looking like as we get ready to watch Round 7 of the Weekend Warriors, and you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing Channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Stefan Schlacher. Behind the scenes is our director, the Dr. Amjad Yaman, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Steph, Charlotte's Roval is nothing new to iRacers, but this version is probably still taking some adjustment for a few folds.
Situated in Concord in North Carolina, the new Charlotte Roval might look like the old Roval, but feeling-wise, it is completely different. Just ask the drivers, everyone will have a different opinion on how this track feels compared to the old layout. 2.3 miles in length and 17 total turns, the new track has its own unique challenges to offer, especially the tricky and fast chicanes. Even though this track now has 2 chicanes added to its layout, Turn 8 still remains as the most important turn on this track as it feeds the drivers directly back onto the oval. But let us show you how this track really feels as we take you on board our GSRC lap guide.
Alright, we're in the GSRC SRF, so let's do a lap around Charlotte. Down in a heartburn turn, there's not as much braking as you'd expect, but the big danger here is both the big blue curb on the inside and getting snap oversteer at any point. The wall on the outside is ready to collect you if you overcorrect. From there, you can keep your foot in it all the way around 2, but you'll have to quickly swing it across the track to set up for 3. It's very difficult to find a fast way through this corner because it effectively creates one long arc into 4. You might notice you can take some liberties with those blue lines as they don't indicate the track limits. You're allowed to run it all the way out to the grass. 5 can be taken flat out, but you want to keep the car stable since you'll be braking right away for 6. The combination of the crest and the concrete wall at the apex make this a very blind corner. But it quickly switches back into 7, where once again the flow of the track makes it tough to find the fastest line. This is especially critical because 8 dumps you back onto the oval, which means it's probably more important to focus on setting up the exit than coming into the corner very hot. Now we finally get a moment to relax as you bring the car down to the bottom of the banking and make sure you hit nice clean shifts. But be prepared to thread the needle because up next is the backstretch chicane. This is going to be a little bit of Russian roulette because the bumps and the curbs can create unpredictable behaviors for the car and send you spinning in a flash. Often, this ends with a trip to the wall. But as you can see, the temptation is going to be great to fly through there as fast as you can because of the way you need to carry your speed in a NASCAR 3 and 4. And that brings us to the final chicane, which is one of the few heavy braking zones on this course. Expect a lot of desperate pass attempts here. Don't get greedy on the curbs, straighten it out, and hopefully you've now finished a lap around Charlotte. You see a lap around a little bit sunnier conditions. Got some fog out here today in the Weekend Warriors at Charlotte. But these Spec Racer Fords are ready to hit the track nonetheless. And if you'd like to have a Spec Racer Ford hit the track for yourself personally in real life, you should check out Southeast Spec Racer. They are a full-service Spec Racer Ford prep shop located in Daytona Beach, Florida. Offering a fleet of race-ready SRFs and the driver coaching to go with it, SSR is your one-stop shop for all things spec. They also offer transportation and storage, parts, and advice. You can find them at southeastspecracer.com. big thanks to them, of course, for sponsoring this season. And we talked about the championship and the status that it is in right now. Well, let's take a look at those points and see exactly where it is. Kane Halliburton jumps back up 3 positions into second place. But look at that, 67 points. And there is a win at 100 points on hand in each round. So it's not impossible, but Kane's got a lot of work to do, and he's not here today from what we saw. So we're not sure that he will be able to do what's needed to try and run down Gaspers in the final few rounds. Lindoff stays where he is, while Elson drops down 2 positions. Sadro, with his recent good results that he's been getting, jumps back up onto the top 5. He's in a close fight there with 4th place. Spec 2 championship, as always, is hotly contested. What are we looking at down there?
Well, Alejandro Leiros still in first with 276 points in to his tally there. But Bob Kern, he is hot on his heels there with just 28 points between the two. So that gap did really close in from last race. Ed Doherty gaining 1 position there, 60 points behind Jeff Cantor. Once again, a guy from the United States there, 61 points behind, just 1 point in between them. And then Tom Gradwell gaining 2 positions into the top 5. He goes 73 points behind. So your first place highly contested, and then also 3rd place rather highly contested there in Spec 2.
And as qualifying gets itself in, we'll cover that in just a bit. But first, the race details of what we've got in store today. We are in round 7 out of 9. In this shorter season, only 1 drop week is allowed. And Gaspers has already taken it for what it's worth. He's missed a race. So has Halliburton, though. The setups on these SRFs are open. You can find a little bit of speed in that, but it's nothing like what you'd expect because, well, there's no wings to adjust. As the spec name implies, they're very simple machines. They have limited the fuel compared to what real life has. So unlike the real spec races, they will have a scheduled stop here today to take fuel. 40 minutes out there, and they've rationed the points. I mentioned 100 for a win. They also have 90 for second and 83 for third. Everything from there on to last place is basically apportioned according to how many cars show up to keep it fair, no matter the size of the field. There is 1 spare car waiting for these guys if they have any sort of damage. They do get penalty points, of course, if they have an incident point. But damage today is kind of expected, unfortunately. We'll go over that in a little bit. This series visiting a track that is going to be a little bit punishing. If you've been enjoying the Weekend Warriors, though, we definitely encourage you to subscribe to the iRacing Esports Network. All you got to do that is hit the big red button that says subscribe on their YouTube page. It'll be pretty easy to find. Why should you subscribe? Well, they've got not only the World Championship Series and not only the Weekend Warriors and other private leagues, but also all sorts of official racing here on iRacing. Guys like the Lotus 49, Camel GT Series, and the Advanced Mazda Cup are here on IESN. Now, if you're in a business where you have to keep track of the condition of another number of cars, well, whether it be rental cars, limousines, construction vehicles, or many other vehicle types, you've probably got a lot to stay on top of. For people like you, Inspectoride is the fastest way to conduct your vehicle inspections and create reports. You can save time, eliminate paper, keep better inspection records, and simplify your life all from your iPhone, iPad, or Android phone or tablet. You can find out more at inspectoride.com/iRacing, where you can even download a free trial to find out if Inspectoride is right for you. Check it out. Once again, that address is inspectoride.com/iRacing. That trial is completely free to try out. Looking at the qualifying, Gaspers up at the front, but a driver behind him who seems to have been finding his legs lately, Henrik Lindoff, the number 8 car, currently on the front row with him.
Yeah, and Antonio Rees also not too far behind Henrik Lindoff right now, just 0.08 of a second behind Henrik Lindoff. But sadly, they have about a 0.5 gap to Gasper, so I'm sure they will find a way to close that gap, but it's really tight there for the first 3, 4, 5 positions.
have to imagine the draft probably being used out here in qualifying. Drivers have talked about how important that is in quali and other tracks, but boy, around here on the Roval, I mean, how much could you gain per lap potentially in these SRFs?
I'm expecting somewhere between 3/10 or maybe 5/10, because you have that big stretch from turn 8 to the first chicane, and then also the first chicane is quite fast, so from that first chicane down to that last chicane, once again, you can gain quite some speed with that draft if you utilize it correctly.
There we see Sadro going through the first chicane successfully. Let's talk about that, because when I drove that lap guide, I was I would tear out my hair if I had any still, trying to make it through there without wrecking the car. I mean, we saw NASCAR have problems, but in these SRFs, it feels like a completely different game.
Yeah, you have to cut that right-hander really tight, but you have to be careful on that exiting curb, because it doesn't look like much, but it's really high. Those sausage curbs behind it are really high. So if you touch that too much, you're gonna bottom out and you're gonna be lost. So you have to really stay tight to the right side of that curb to really be fast and be safe through that.
Let's see a few more of the cars. Jason Perry weaving his way through.
And one thing you also have to not forget, I nearly did that, it's also the transition that you have. It's rather sharp, because the chicane itself, it's situated on the apron, and you're coming down from a little bit of a banking, so you will always see the cars jumping around a little bit going into the chicane. So if you once again hit the curbs wrong, that can mess you up and mess your lap or race up.
Oh, there's a great example right there with Doherty. And we're expecting the first lap to be a little hairy, because if anybody has a problem through there, well, there's a whole lot of cars coming through that could run into you, as we watch our pole sitter try to increase his gap, which is currently half a second over Lindoff. He's apparently is not satisfied with what is a very, very big gap here on not a terribly long lap, just about a minute and a half around this circuit. Taking a look at the track map, one thing that strikes me in this SRF, doesn't seem like there's many slow corners per se, and now Gasper's caught out by the chicane. I mean, is there anywhere to pass other than using the draft around here?
It's gonna be hard without taking the draft sections out of this track. Maybe you can do something into turn 1. But I doubted that anything goes in the infield, to be honest.
Yeah, we'll have to see if anybody's brave enough or has any sort of advantage through there. There's Kern heading through turn 1, which I don't know how some people feel about this, because I know Bill in particular hates sponsored corners, but I actually like the name Heartburn Turn. I feel like even if Tums doesn't sponsor it in future seasons, I don't know, I feel like it suits it, because it is so stressful getting the most out of that corner.
Yeah, and it's a good name, Heartburn Turn. Every time you mention it, you do something for the greater good. So yeah, I roll with it too. It's a great name.
Mark Gehan currently 22nd, trying to get a few more laps in. In fact, he's got a number of laps counting. Usually we see drivers have a lot of off tracks when you have chicanes in here, but Gehan's been managing to successfully get almost all of his in. This last one, unfortunately, not as fast as, so he'll stay on that 29.3 in P22. Wobolt a little bit behind him in 24th. Currently, our highest car in Spec 2 is, I mean, any guesses here at all, Steph?
I don't think that anyone still has to guess that Alejandro Leiro once again is the fastest Spec 2 driver right now, and he is so by 7/10. So Leiro really putting on a show in Spec 2.
All the way up in P5. He's getting quite a bit of a tow right now from Wobolt and Lindoff. In fact, looks like Wobolt going to pull off to the side for him. So Leiro now behind his teammate probably utilizing him to try and gain even more. Let's see if that jumps him. Oh, no, that one did not count, unfortunately. That would have been pole position. He's still got 2 more tries, it looks like. Ooh,
yeah.
Well, this makes it interesting.
He has his teammate in front of him, so if someone's gonna help him, it's Henrik Lindoff. I mean, he would lose a position to him probably then, but hey, it's for the greater good.
Yeah, I think at that point that Lindoff wouldn't really mind if it's his teammate going by, because they'd lock out the front row and they could work together at the start of the race as long as they don't lose each other to try and gap the rest of the field, though that may be difficult today. We're riding on board with Lindoff, looking back at Liero. Liero not gaining a whole lot here, so I'm not sure if this one's going to be fast. It'll depend on if he swaps around with him coming to that second chicane as they work their way through the backstretch.
Don't forget, Lindoff has Doherty. Never mind, he had Doherty in front of him. Doherty just spun out there. You were able to catch a glimpse of it on the left side of your screen. The Lindoff, he has no one that can impede his lap, so he just has to be fast enough through this last chicane to not impede the lap of his teammate. Let's see what Leiro can do.
Ooh, not Leiro, but Lindoff clips the wall, so he's going to abandon qualifying. Liero still
Not
slower than his
faster.
fastest, but it was 1/100th off, and I think he had a little bit of a swerve, so it looks like he won't be able to improve here on his final lap, especially without his teammate helping him. Gasper's still circling around. This will be his last time to lap. He is still about 4/10 ahead of Lindoff, so he won't be able to overtake him. Antonio Reese is able to get one final lap in, it looks like. So we still got a few cars coming around, trying to improve. Who's going to be our first to cross the line now that we've got the checkered flag here?
Does look like Adam Bradshaw.
He's currently sitting in 10th. He is second in the Spec 2 field right now, but a whole 5 positions behind Liero, who has abandoned his lap. Let's see if he can get any closer to him. He's got no help out there, so it's going to be a very tough ask. He might have clipped the wall. No, he did not. A 27.7, but it does not improve his position, sadly.
Let's see, next up coming to the line is gonna be Jason Perry. He's already in the last chicane here. And coming over the line with a 120.
Nope, doesn't improve, looks like.
Out.
Antonio Reese up next. He's currently sitting in 3rd. Let's see if he can get past Lindoff. Maybe even take the pole away from David Gaspers. He's got to improve a lot of time. And unfortunately, no, that was a slow lap for him.
Miroslav Juricek is still coming over the line with a 126.7, putting himself from 30th to 3rd.
Woo! Well, that'll make him one to watch. He's been fast lately, but a little bit mistake prone, and that will complete our qualifying. So let's go through our starting grid. David Gaspers going to be your first up there on the pole, with Henrik Lindoff rounding out the front row in second. Miroslav Juricek at the last moments, the last car across the line to put a time in to get himself into 3rd, bumping Antonio Reese down to 4th. Then how about Steve Elson? Mr. Consistency this season so far. He'll be starting in 5th. Alejandro Liero is bumped down to 6th, but still the pole sitter for Spec 2. Daniel Sadro starts in 7th, followed by Michael Shaw in 8th. Then row 5 has Jason Perry in 9th and Jerry McAreevy in 10th.
Adam Bradshaw in 11th place alongside Andres Bertoni. Chris Murakami 01 in 13th, and 14th goes to the number 14 machine of Matthew Staley. Jim McGill will line up in 15th, and Gorka Ichirata in 16th. Fred Desai 17th, Stevie Ray in 18th, and in the 10th row we'll have Bob Kern and Dominic Burrell lining up.
Jeff Jacobson will be P21. Jeff Cantor behind him in 22nd. Mark Gehan was not able to improve himself. He'll start 23rd. Edgar Sanchinelli, 24th. Then it's Gary Wobold in P25, followed by Rick Hansen in 26th and Ramon Regalado in 27th. Ian Wilson starts 28th. 29th will be Sammy Viljanen. with 30th going to Matt Solblum. Dimitri Houdalutis is our first driver not to get a time in. He's very, very fast, so he's going to have a long climb. Edward Doherty, 32nd. John Nielsen, 34th. And John Dion, 33rd. Now, we do a rolling start, and I guess they're doing the entire lap, but I love this new trend that they've been doing here in iRacing with Cup Car tracks, which this one would count as. We've got a beautiful little slanted row of SRFs all lined up ready for inspection before the roof pace car leads them around. Steph?
Yeah, nice Le Mans start there. Obviously, without the running to your car and then starting it and driving away. A bit too dangerous, especially because people didn't technically put their seatbelts on for the first 2-3 laps. So those times are behind, but it always just looks awesome with having the cars roll away from the position one by one. Dimitris Houdalutis there a bit fast on the start. You can see him being all ahead of everyone else. Has to wait though, obviously, for the cars ahead of him start.
He's used to taking off a little bit earlier. So they would now work their way into the infield. One thing that I love about this circuit that's a bit unique too in terms of road courses nowadays, at least, look at all the banking that you've got in these corners. You don't see that much anymore in modern road circuits. I know this is a Roval technically, but I don't know. I would like to see a little bit more camber differences in road courses like this.
It goes down a bit to the FIA because the bank turns put a lot of stress onto tires. So they really do want to avoid that because they don't want to see stuff like Indianapolis 2005 again. So they really do shy away from that. But then again, we have turns like China onto the long backstretch. So it's coming back slowly and surely once again also into European racing. But as I said, it's just so awesome to see the cars just go so much faster through a turn than it is, and then if it would be just a flat turn.
Gives it a little bit of interest, a little bit of track knowledge that you need to have to figure out the best way through, I suppose. A lot more banking here on the oval portion, of course. And let's take a look at the weather, if we could actually see it through the fog here today. Only 2%, but you can see the effect that it has in the surroundings. Makes it pretty gloomy. 86-degree track temperature because the sun isn't shining through, so relatively cool out here in the Carolinas.
Well, it is going to be interesting, though, how it will impact the drivers, and especially the grip that the drivers will feel and the feedback the drivers will get from the car. So it's going to be interesting to see how that will maybe affect the long run of their cars.
Now, unfortunately, unlike NASCAR here in the sim, they have it where you go through the chicane on these rolling starts. So David Gaspers is going to have control, but going to have it a little bit easier, I think, than the rest of the field, which is going to have to tiptoe its way through once they get the green flag. Here goes the roof pace car, giving control over to Gaspers, waiting patiently for the green flag to fall. They're giving it a little bit of time. Now he accelerates away right when they hit the chicane, already leaving Lindhoff behind him. Few cars behind trying to work their way side by side through there. Hopefully we won't get any cars having to wreck before they even get to the start-finish line, but already our leaders coming through Heartburn Turn.
Yeah, and everything so far so clean, so single file, one could say. Lots of single file action. And we have a bit of a separation already. The top two are separated, then the top and three cars, and then we have the big train in behind. Who's that? That's Daniel Sadler.
Yeah, Juracek, the one who's currently got to close the gap up to Lindhoff. That can't be good if those two manage to break the draft in the very first lap, especially if Gaspers is giving Henrik the tow. Not sure that Juracek will be able to run them down on sheer pace alone. They hit the banking for the first time coming around the oval portion. Now, what is the backstretch chicane gonna hold for our field? Will everybody manage to make it through? Here we go.
Bit of side-by-side action there in the pack of three in behind. Oh, who is that?
That was Lindhoff, second place, and he's in the middle of the track. He's finally drifting down to the bottom of the course. But one of our top runners immediately bitten by the curbing. Everybody else, I think, threw clean.
It was that second part of the chicane coming back onto the bank again. He just loses the car and just can't correct it in time for the hard impact into the safety barrier.
Here's from Juracek's view. A little bit behind, but big impact. Has to take all the way to the flat to get around him. So did the car behind him. I think that was Elson maybe, or Reese possibly. Regardless, this gives a big gap up to Gaspers, now 2.2 seconds from first to second place.
Yeah, and it's...
Oh, we got a big incident happen in the mid-pack. Jim McGill involved in it. Looks like Mark Geehan, Edgar Sanchinelli, a number of cars having to scatter through turns 3 and 4. I think that started with Cantor, it looks like.
Yes, McGill is a different incident. He just spun out himself, and Cantor, he tried to catch that slide as you're gonna see, and then just gets rear-ended by Jeff Jacobson. Yeah, unfortunate incident there.
Yeah, looking a little bit messy, and a number of cars trying to limp around to take their spare car. There is our current leader, David Gaspers, has now stretched it to 2.2 over Juracek, who's still fighting for that second place. Antonio Reese is rolling behind him on the bottom step of the podium in his number 77, giving chase. You can see up at the top, the fastest lap just went to David Gaspers, and that is without a draft, we should remind you. So he is running a torrid pace up at the front, trying to stretch away from these two to keep them from using the draft to catch him.
Yeah, and he's so far doing a great job. The most damage he can do is in the infield, obviously, because they might just close in ever so slightly with the tandem draft that they might be able to get going. Although Antonio Reese is starting to fall off the rear of Miroslav Juracek.
Meanwhile, looking at Jason Perry here, trying to chase down Daniel Sadro, and, well, he's got a tow. Oh, and Gorka Idarate's had some problems, unfortunately. What happened here?
It's probably the transition back onto the oval there. Let's have a look here on the replay. Or did he get a push?
Stevie Ray got into him. Both of them went spinning around, and unfortunately also caused a bit of a spin for Bob Kern, who then got plowed into by Dominique Bierdo. Boy, it seems like not easy to have a single car incident here, because as soon as one car goes off, everybody else having some incredible trouble avoiding them.
Yeah, it's perspective. Just the problem of this track, it's rather narrow for how fast the turns are, so as soon as someone has a problem, the pack racing that you get at a track like this, it just sadly feeds one into another, and that's exactly what we saw there.
Haven't even hit the
Antonio Reese
from third place, slipping down the order, and this was a rare single car incident that we've got into, I believe this was 6?
Yes, it's 6. He just a bit too fast, had to overbrake, and then spun it out. There you can see it. And yeah, very lucky that he didn't get connected by others there.
Yeah, great heads up by all the drivers coming up on him. He falls all the way down to 14th. That is a huge drop in positions. He's got a lot of race to try and make it up, but boy, did he pay dearly for that one little spin. You can see him now trailing behind the likes of Desai, Murakami, Makarivi, and Staley.
Dimitris Houdeludis, we have told you he's starting 31st overall. He's already up to 16th position in just 4 laps.
Make that 15th. He managed to overtake Jeff Jacobson on this lap. And as he comes through the chicane, Jacobson probably doing the wise thing and just trying to ride behind and carry the draft of the Greek driver, knowing how fast he is. So that all these incidents have split up some of our top drivers, but not all of them. Really, we've got a great train of cars going from 6 back. Sadro, Bertoni, Bradshaw, Shaw, and actually Staley is in there too. He's caught up. That brings McAreevy, Murakami, Desai, and Reese in there. So this is all the way back to 14th.
Yeah, it's the big train here, and they're all looking racy. They're close together. A few cars have already seen a bit of a wall, but they're all still going, and they're all still going fast. And Andres Bertoni, he does not want to wait behind Daniel Sartre, trying to take that 6th place away.
Yeah, but it looks like the long way around is not going to give him enough momentum. Sadro thinks better of it. He lifts. He's going to let him through into the chicane. Really not wise to go side by side through there. Can he get the run off potentially? He does, but he's being joined by Adam Bradshaw, who's creeping up behind him.
Now let's see what they're gonna do. Matthew Stanley also with a lot of steam coming up. Everyone breaks a bit early, not wanting to attack anyone as of just now.
Oh, and Hootaludis has had a problem. All that progress dashed away, and it is the backstretch chicane yet again.
Does he have damage? Yes, he has a little bit of left or right rear damage. They can see it once again going into the chicane, coming out of it now, and just once again over the bumps, over the curbs, he loses it and backs into the wall as he just got turned out of the last chicane there by the no, he didn't get turned by the curb,
yeah,
just a
spun
bit
on his
too
own.
fast. I thought he got turned by the curbs, but no, he just was too deep into the braking zone there.
That's Doherty going by. Very, very close to hitting him, and Dimitri Hootaludis finds himself struggling after a phenomenal climb through the field. This is Doherty's point of view. Nice avoidance maneuver.
Yeah, I think Hootaludis got him caught out a little bit by him trying to go for the right side there.
Adam Bradshaw just went side by side through the backstretch chicane with Matthew Staley just now. He's in 2nd place in the Spec 2 race today. Somehow they came out the other side. Jerry McAreevy unable to do anything with it. And Chris Murakami watching from the popcorn position, hoping that all this excitement may offer him a couple of spots.
Yeah, but look at how far Sadro and Andres Bertoni are already away from this pack just by 2 laps of fighting here for them. They really have to get their act together and start to work together here, otherwise they're just gonna lose 6th and 7th. They're out of their hands, out of their sights.
Great run by Staley on Sami Viljanen, but this is a lapped car, so he's just going to let him by. Oh, as Bradshaw has to sneak through too. This is a horrible spot by Sami to be caught by this train because there's nowhere for him to hide. Desperately trying to let as many through with as little interruption as possible, but unfortunately, a lot of driving lines were compromised.
Yeah, but he did a good job for where he was caught, so gotta give it to him. And Michael Shaw, right now in 14th position, he is losing a lot of speed with a lot of right side damage. Can't even draft up to Sami to get past him.
See all the cars working their way through that chicane. Not so much a chicane because it barely slows the cars down, as it is just a pair of S's, I guess. One note as we watch this battle continue, we don't have to go to it. Liero is on the podium. He is still our Spec 2 leader, but he's survived so much better than all those around him that he's just been gaining spot after spot. And this looks like Michael Shaw coming in a little bit early for his spare car.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to him, but as you can see, a lot of right side damage to his car, and thinking better, because he was losing, even in the draft, a lot of speed to the cars in front of him.
I want to correct myself. Lero. We've been saying it wrong all this time. Alejandro Lero is currently our Spec 2 leader. You see him on screen right now. He's got 5 seconds up to Juracek, so not likely that he'll be able to run down the number 84. But he's also got 2.2 back to Steve Elson, and it doesn't look like the 56 has been gaining on him lately.
Yeah, it does seem like that. I think Valero just has so much more pace than Elson, but Elson was also a full second slower than his lap before that, so he had a bit of a problem there. And he's actually gonna pit, apparently. Yes, he does.
Well, we must be into the pit window firmly now. It was right on the cusp from what it looked like. So Elson maybe trying to use a little bit of alternate strategy. Now, could this hurt him, though? Is traffic a real worry around here?
Normally not. For the speed that people are carrying, the track, the infield is quite tight. But to actually make passes happen or make lap passes happen, it's actually pretty wide, especially for small cars like these. So I'm not expecting traffic to be of any hindrance here at all, especially down the oval. You're actually gonna be able to gain quite a bit with that draft.
Andre Bertoni currently sitting in 5th. Haven't given him a whole lot of screen time. He's still fighting with Sadro, though. They may have separated themselves from the pack behind, but I think the battle is still on between these two. So we're now quartered away through the race. The leader is still David Gaspers. He started on pole, hasn't looked back since the first lap when he dropped Lindoff through the backstretch chicane and hasn't had no one to challenge him.
Yeah, pretty much you're saying it. He lost Lindoff, and after that, just no more challenge for him. The only challenge that remains for him is A, traffic, or B, the track.
Looking at Murakami from the back of Jerry McAreevy. And Murakami's got enough of a run that he'll be able to get his nose to the inside, but he decides against it once they hit the front stretch chicane. Fred Desai.
Oh, Bradshaw!
What happened to Bradshaw there? I think he just outbraked himself trying to pass Staley.
Yeah, exactly. Way too fast into the chicane, outbrakes himself, and then one rallycross jump over the curbs, please. Thank you very much. There you can see it goes over the curbs there quite hard, bottoms out, nearly loses it over the curbs, and yeah, able to continue, but that must be quite some underflow damage to his car.
No doubt. Well, your favorite pit strategist has come in. Looks like Stevie Ray takes his traditional early stop.
Who is that? Oh, that's a lap car being spun there. Yeah, it's gonna make me wonder now with Steve Elson, how it's gonna play out with him, because he pitted earlier than Stevie Ray.
Yeah, it was one lap earlier, so not too significant of a difference.
Oh, Bertoni! Bertoni
Oh, no.
has found the wall out of the first chicane. Very hard impact to the front of his car.
Let's watch from on board, and once again the turtles, snapping turtles today, have taken another victim. Trying to figure out who that was. It just snuck by him.
It should be Sadro, yeah.
Sadro himself really flirting with those curbs, and gets really lucky, honestly, because that car shot across the track just as he was coming through. So Bertoni takes his spare car and is currently standing in his stall waiting for that to finish.
Yeah, good thing for him that the remaining lap to the pits isn't that far from that first chicane, and then also he is already in the pit window because Stevie Ray pitted, and he pretty much always pits on the first available lap. So lucky break for him, even though he has to take the spare car, he is still in contention for a good position here.
So while we still have that train that we've been watching that you see here on screen being led by McAreevy, it's got Murakami, Desai, and Reese left in it. I have to ask you this, Steph. Is this going to be a last man standing sort of situation?
It's gonna be interesting. Obviously, you have the probability of the turtles biting you, But, oh, Chris Murakami actually side by side here with McReevy.
Looks like he was trying to get some side draft off of him there, squeezing him down. They're going to go side by side through the last chicane.
Oh,
they come together and he gets turned around. Desai runs into him. Bradshaw has to take avoided action to try and get by.
That was quite some heavy netcode involved into that, sadly, for the two parties here.
Yeah, that's what it looked like for me as well. Should have been some simple door banging, but yeah, that should not have sent him around the way that it did. The 0-1 right into the wall.
One more thing, Steve Elson also collected a car of Chris Murakami there. Bad luck for Steve Elson there. Not able to avoid the car of Chris Murakami. There you can see there he's coming up to the incident there and just, yeah, gets a bit sideways and just not able to correct in time to avoid the standing car of Chris Murakami.
Oof, it has been an attrition-filled race. Now, in that with Elson, Murakami actually was trying to back up, and then I think it hit John Dion just well enough. We don't need to see the replay that it damaged his suspension. He actually had to get a tow and head back into the pits and is taking his spare car. My goodness, this is starting to look a little bit more like a demolition derby, unfortunately, with the damage that we're seeing on so many cars out here. We've jumped back to Murakami, who's got it going once again.
Yeah, and here we have Hooded Ludus now back, and that's pretty much a pack of like 6-7 cars here. It's for, I think, 14th position here, this pack. Actually, no, it's for 10th now. No, 13th. I can't read. My bad.
Murakami, understandably, taking the 0-1 in to get his spare car as well. Well, that really split up that last pack then. I think the only two cars close together after that is Bradshaw and Desai in 8th and 9th. Everyone else is multiple seconds apart from that group. Behind them, that has brought together the likes of Jacobson and Doherty. This is for 11th.
Yeah, and that's from the pack that I was talking earlier about. And you also have Rick Hansen and Dimitris Hooded backing, coming up to the back of these two. So if they fight for too long, they will have two more cars to fight with, as Hooded takes advantage in the background there, or foreground now, of the mistake of Rick Hansen, so move him up into 13th position.
And Doherty up to 11th, manages to overtake Jacobson. David Gaspers, in the meantime, has taken his scheduled stop, one of the few drivers that hasn't run into trouble here today, in and out easily, and he's on his way. That'll actually put him into very clear track, just ahead of Matthew Staley.
And
perfect timing.
Jeff Jacobson now pits from the pack, from the fight that we just saw. So he's gonna break up that battle there for P11 for a second.
Let's see, we've got a smattering of drivers who've come and stopped, but not a lot. I heard another car spinning, did I not? Can't quite figure out who it is. I guess that's just going to be a common sound here today. So with that pit, Andro Lero has now gotten to the dizzying heights of P2, even though he is a Spec 2 driver.
Yeah, and I think it's the first time we see a Spec 2 driver in the top 3 of a race. Be it pit stop or pit stop cleaned. So yeah, still a great job by Lero. And yeah, let's see if he maybe can do something with that boost of confidence.
This is side by side into the last chicane. Hootaludis is brave today, but Doherty is going to come out ahead of those two. That costs a lot of time to the Greek driver. Now, Hootaludis, even though he's down in 12th, has not taken his stop yet. Most of his woes have come from spins earlier in the race, and he's going to continue on this time, still not coming in.
Yeah, he had that one spin, and I mean, it's still an impressive climb from 31st to 12th. Ahead of him, that's Doherty. He came from 32nd to 11th. But as Bill always says, he's not the true hard charger of the day so far.
Yeah, we'll have to look through, see who's gained the most. But in the meantime, he's in a nice little spirited fight with Doherty. Looking to the inside of 5. That doesn't quite work. He stays to the inside through 6. Tried it again. Still doesn't quite work, but he's gaining ground now on Doherty. The track switches back, however, into 7. He slots in behind. Looks for the run off the corner onto the banking, and he gets it. A good head of steam. Should hand this one over to him this time.
Yeah, he's gonna be well clear. He's already clear of Doherty right there. So yeah, easy peasy, lemon squeezy, as people would say. But yeah, let's see. Doherty, know he's gonna stick behind and give him a little bit of a push there into the chicane.
Yeah, he knows he'll get another run. Ooh, he took a lot of curb coming out of the second half there. But that does give him momentum. Will he fight him into the final chicane? He's thinking about it. He moves up to the high side on the banking. Almost squeezes him down, trying to widen this entry as much as possible. Too wide into the chicane.
Oh, he's gonna lose it. Oh, whoa!
That was John Dion into his second car today through that chicane. Oh, the 260 not having a fun time coming onto the front stretch.
No, not at all there, as we go into replay to see exactly what happened there from his perspective. Everything looks normal, and then there you can see it, it's spinning out, and yeah, no way to avoid that being on the curbs there.
We talk about these cars being open setup. Is there any way that you can tune that looseness out of this car? Because this track, it seems like it's so easy for them to swap ends.
The thing with this car is, and that's a good thing about this car, it's a simple answer, no.
Oh no, Doherty! Who is that he just got into? Solblum finds himself trying to back up across the track to get it turned around from an earlier spin. Let's see, is this, yep, that was all on his own. And that's a very blind corner. Oh, just awful, awful timing. This is Doherty's perspective. This will give us an idea of just how little warning the New York driver had. Oh yeah, I mean he had less than a second to try and pick a side, and he picked the wrong one, unfortunately. Now, as that was happening, Alejandro Lero took his pit stop. That puts him back out in 7th. They're still waiting on a number of cars to come in up at the top of the field.
Yeah, Lero was already in the pit lane, so he's right now the leader of the pit guy, I think.
No, that would be Gaspers.
Oh, Gaspers, yeah, I forgot about him.
Yeah, our leader has pitted. So he's back out. This is Juracek, who is our current leader, though, technically on track. But he will need to take his stop, and we expect he'll hand that over to Gaspers, unless Gaspers has, for whatever reason, been losing time. Now, we haven't seen any sign that number 23 should be doing that.
Well, yeah, it's one dominant performance by Gaspers so far, yet again. Just keeping his cool, trying to not make mistakes, or not making too many mistakes, or mistakes that do cost him time, or maybe even some scratch. He had a scratch earlier at the turn 1 wall, so he did take his free car. But apart from that, he is keeping it clean, keeping it safe, and two lap cars of Jeff Cantor and Bob Kerner are getting together a little bit.
On screen, we were watching Bradshaw pitting. He was our leader in Spec 2, but that was because Lero pitted. Here's the replay on Kern. And just a little shove. We're going to watch it on board here.
Yeah. Jeff Cantor in front gets a little bit of a slide there. And Bob Kern, I think he was able to avoid it, actually.
No, he made contact twice with both of them very, very light. Now that can affect them in a straight line, but oh, and who was that?
Oh, Cantor on the apron there. What happened
Already
to him there?
well down the order, and 22nd. I'm curious.
Is that out
as
of the
well.
first screen or?
No, oh, did he get bumped? Oh yeah, there were cars fighting, and I think that was Doherty again. Yeah, I think there was there's plenty of room on the track, but when you're trying to take the shortest line possible through the oval, you took it too short.
Yeah, bit of a weird incident there. You can see Jeff Cantor also braking there.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Yeah.
And Doherty spins it anyways, so I don't know if you would call that karma or what. But when with Cantor braking, he would not expect that on the oval portion, I don't think. Jerry McAreevy in the meantime, and Matthew Staley also coming in. They are done with their stops. Just waiting on the likes of Regalado. Iterate is yet to pit. Hudaluta's still out there. Perry and Juracek need to come in. And 12 minutes left to go. And Juracek is in himself. So this will hand the lead over to Perry. No, it won't, because Perry also coming into pit. Now Gaspers will retake the lead.
Yep, Gasper's already over the start-finish line right now, so Juracek just up to his pit stall. Now the question is, where is Leiro? Leiro is coming into the last chicane now, and it might get close to
Juracek. Ooh, it's a long stop for Juracek. Most drivers doing between 10 and 14 seconds. It was 18 for Juracek.
Yeah, and Juracek also nearly spun out of the pit lane there, but Leiro just has to slot in behind about 2 seconds. Oh, Juracek!
That will hand second place to our Spec 2 leader, Alejandro Leiro. Juracek with a critical error.
Cold tires.
He almost... does that affect the car that much?
Yes, on the outlap, especially on the cold temperatures that we have. You're also gonna be slower here, so he probably didn't expect that was off the throttle there, I think I heard. So, yeah.
And he got some big damage on the rear of the car, unfortunately, so that's going to hurt his top-end speed. Sadro, Perry, and Elson are not far behind. I wonder if we could see Miroslav falling down the order.
Yeah, I might not even be surprised if Miroslav actually takes a new car here. So let's see what he decides to do.
But Perry spins. Perry spins out of the backstretch chicane. He was having connection problems.
Ooh, thank God nobody was anywhere close to him. He came back high onto the track again.
It looks like that second curb just bumped the rear of the car up, and thankfully did not hit anything else, but keeps going. Spider-Man looking a little bit more like Spider-Gwen today in his white car. And Gorka Iterate comes in. That leaves Regalado, who also comes in. That will be everybody taking their scheduled stops.
Yes, and the interesting thing now is Leiro. He is not used to a position that high up. He's right now 21.4 seconds behind David Gaspers. He is 4.4 seconds ahead of Juracek. I'm talking here the numbers at the line. So the thing is, can Leiro keep the cool and stay composed for the last 9 minutes of this race and bring his car home here in second place, because his next competitor in the Spec 2 class is right now in 14th.
Gasper's had a slow lap. Did he have a cut course somewhere?
Oh, he spun out of the first chicane on the backstretch.
Ooh. He got away with it. Now, he hit the curb pretty hard, though, so that could cause some damage to the underside. But he didn't hit the wall.
Yeah, he went so hard over the curb there that his rear lifted up quite high up the ground there. There you can see it now coming into the chicane here, and there he goes.
Oof. Immediately just pushes his foot to the floor to lock the brakes up and keeps it out of the wall. So it's a good thing he had that 21-second gap, because it is now down to 11 seconds between himself and Lero. I don't think David is certainly sweating quite yet, but the number 23 car, still our leader. Not a perfect race.
Have to say though, every single time we saw David Gaspers having a big lead, he always had a bit of an issue. Remember, Belle Isle, he hit the turn 1 wall hard. Then last week he also had a bit of a problem. Brands Hatch, he had a bit of a problem, and here once again he has a bit of a problem. Is that the only problem that he has, or will there more come? We'll find out in the next 7 minutes.
Meanwhile, Miroslav Juracek, with his damage, is certainly struggling for top end, because here comes Daniel Sadro. And has very quickly run down this gap. He's not going to wait, or is he?
Oh!
Looking a heartburn turn. Sadro throws away an opportunity. He gets it turned around in a very blind corner himself, trying to get out of the way.
Elson,
and trying to avoid him, spins the car into the wall. This is Sadro's view. Was trying his best to get out of the way of Elson, and Elson gets unnerved.
Elson had to take it to there. Too much damage to the car here. As you can see, hard into the right wall, hard into the left wall.
Did Bob Kern get him there?
Yes, that was Bob Kern too. That got into him ever so slightly.
This is New Yorker's perspective. Sees both cars. Wow, what a chain reaction that was. And it was another case of a car trying to come back onto the racing line. I have a feeling there's going to be some racing etiquette 101 chatter after this race.
Yeah, might as well be, but the new guy in 5th position is now going to be Jason Perry if he makes this pass stick into the backstretch chicane. No, he does not, so Andres Bertoni stays in 5th position now, but this is your fight for 5th position right now. Bertoni, Perry, and Sadro.
Wow, I can't believe this, but Juracek, because of what happened there, is looking like he will get 3rd place despite the damage, because it's 14 seconds between himself and Bertoni. Meanwhile, we're riding on board, we were riding on board with, I think it's a few lap cars here, as Bertoni still leading Perry up through 1 and 2. There is a lot of lap traffic that they're having to try and navigate their way through.
Yes, we have Jeff Jacobson and Bob Kern there. Bob Kern getting out of the way here in turn 4. So it's now Bertoni, Perry, Kern, and then Sadro. So Sadro is now also past Kern, so the 3 are back together.
It's a battle for best of the rest at all these drivers trying to take 4th away from Bertoni. Perry, the closest behind. Daniel Sadro, who's recovered the car, is looking to chase them down. We ride on board with Jason Perry. Only 4 minutes left to go, so the laps are dwindling. The opportunity starting to run away. Perry tried to go side by side last time. He's going to try side by side this time. Nope, he backs out once again.
Yeah, and he's hoping to slow down Bertoni enough so he can get a run out of it, but it's just not happening. Bertoni having the stronger nerves here, being a bit, more aggressive into the chicane, and it pays off every single time. Where is Perry coming from there? What a dive bomb there. And Perry not able to get alongside Bertoni there, though.
Oh, but he's got his nose in, coming down into Heartburn turn. He's given space. Bertoni did the same at the chicane, but he gets a little bit of speed off the corner. It's not enough because Jason Perry is fully passed if he wants to take it. No, not anymore, because down to the inside, Bertoni trying to take the position back side by side through 3 and 4. He can't gun it off the corner. This is allowing Daniel Sadro to get behind them, and now they're joined by Jerry McAreevy as well.
Yeah, and out of 2 cars, it's suddenly 4 cars there. But the big question is, what can Perry now do? He is now in front of Bertoni. Can he get away, or will they be able to keep with him?
They're going to have to deal with the draft down the backstretch once again. Bertoni with not the greatest of runs off of turn 8. Sadro with an even worse one. Now that McAreevy is gaining on him, there you see on the screen as well. Bertoni looking to the outside, but comes back to the racing line.
Oh!
Sadro very strong, and Perry spins again.
Whoa, that was close.
McAreevy ekes through with inches to spare.
Jason Perry, not the first time we saw him spin out of the first chicane, and this time it catches him majorly there. Just too aggressive on the left-hand turn, loses the car over the transition of the banking, and look at that gap for McAreevy.
They're going to watch the view from the UK and I driver. He starts to see the spin happening. Once again, has to pick a side. Yee-hoo! And wow, the extra speed that gave him to get past Sadro was a big help.
Oh, Bertoni just now with a big wobble out of turn 4. McAreevy passed him now, so McAreevy now in 4th place. Will also Daniel Sadro get past Andres Bertoni. Still side by side here into turn 6 they go.
Bertoni doing his best to hold back Sadro. He's on the inside. Can he carry the speed? Could see maybe an over-under, and indeed a big bobble coming off the corner. Bertoni loses his momentum and hands it over to Daniel.
That looked like Bertoni did cook his tires a little bit too much out of turn 4. Because once again, he had that big 11 there down onto the asphalt.
And we're getting close to the white flag. McAreevy was watching those two, saying, "You boys have fun," as he starts to stretch away. This is Gasper's on screen. Now, is he actually, are we going to get white this time or next time? Or, I mean, are we on it or next time, rather? It's like next time by, we're going to get the white flag. Meanwhile, back to Bertoni in this fight with Sadro. Sadro, who is looking at a potential podium, finds himself just struggling to stay in the top 5 at this point.
Yeah, and I think the biggest fight will be between these 3 guys here, because third and second, Lero and Jurček are just too far apart. If they fight too much, Daly is not that far behind them.
Indeed, white flag now comes out with Gaspers crossing the start-finish line. This has been a bit of a Sunday drive for the number 23. Not flawless, but 18.6 seconds over second place tells you the kind of impressive performance that we're seeing from Gaspers for what looks like will be his 4th win. McAreevy, in the meantime, has been caught by Bertoni and Sadro. So things about to get very interesting in the battle for 4th. Big run from Bertoni, but he's going to be covered off as McAreevy goes defensive into the final chicane. They get the white flag. Both of them very hot into the corner, but both off successfully. Now Sadro behind them. Duck to the inside. Is that defense or attack from Bertoni?
Look at Sadro though. That was most definitely attack there, but just doesn't get the run out of the turn there. But still side by side with him. Backs off now of Bertoni.
And unfortunately, we're going to have to leave this because Gasper's coming through that last chicane. Works his way through much safer than what we saw before. The final front stretch chicane, the last braking event here for the number 23 in this 40-minute race. All he's got to do is be nice and clean through, and he does. The number 23 takes his 4th victory of the season.
Yes, Lero and Jurczyk will take P2 and P3, but P4, 5, 6, and 7 are still under contest here because we have a 4-car train for those positions.
Indeed, that's McAreevy you see in the green and white machine. Bertoni following in the dark purple and white. Tries to get himself a good run. Yeah, but I don't think this is going to be enough. Behind them, that is Staley fighting with Sadro for position as well. Another defensive move from McAreevy back to the racing line. All he has to do is get through clean. It's a little cautious, but that's all he needs to finish ahead of Bertoni, ahead of Sadro, and Staley back there in 7th as well.
Oh, Stevie Ray had a big incident, actually. Oh, Dimitris Houdeludis, Fred Desai, and Stevie Ray with a big incident into the first chicane here on the back stretch.
And 2 separate incidents we should point out. Ray takes it too hot. Houdeludis gets into the back of Desai, and in the process finds himself absolutely T-boning the tires. Oof, this is one of the biggest accidents I've seen in this series. My goodness. I'd love to see what the recorded stats are for Houdeludis and the G-forces that car experienced.
As we go on board, apparently the camera survived this impact long enough to give us some great pictures. So let's have a look there from Dimitris Houdeludis on board. There he goes onto the turtles, and boom.
Boom indeed. But that's going to finish our race here today. Only 12 cars finished on the lead lap. So it was attrition filled out there. We're going to come back after a short break where you'll see all the upcoming races on GSRC. After that, you'll get the unofficial results as well as driver interviews. Welcome back to Charlotte Motor Speedway, where we just watched round 7 here in the Weekend Warriors. In a race that saw a lot of drivers licking their wounds afterwards, David Gaspers, one of the few to come out with not much of a scratch, we can say. He did have his own problems, but he also dominated the field by 21 seconds. But here's the feel-good story of the day. Alejandro Lero finished in second. Why does that feel good? Well, he's a Spec 2 driver. He got 90 points today. He started from 6, which was already incredible enough. We think even though that won't mathematically eliminate drivers in the Spec 2 championship, Lero going to be almost uncatchable. Third place goes to Miroslav Juracek, who has to be thanking his lucky stars because he should have slipped down a number of positions, but late in the race, other drivers who were challenging him fell by the wayside. Jerry McAreevy finished in 4th, who had to fight off the likes of Andre Bertoni in the final lap. Daniel Sadro right behind him in the train in 6th, and Matthew Staley behind them in 7th. Jason Perry, a late race incident, finishes him in 8th with Antonio Reese 9th. Stevie Ray, who unfortunately had a spin at the end as well, still climbed up the order from 18th to 10th. Gorka Iturrate finishes behind him, and I'll hand over to Steph.
Fred Desai in 12th position, or the last car finishing on the lead lap. Dimitris Houdelus being there on the back of his car after that big incident impact with the tire barrier. Finishes in 13th, Rick Hansen 14th, Chris Murakami 15th, Ramon Regalado 16th, Jim McChill in 17th, Bob Kern, that's 4th place in Spec 2 here, 18th, Dominic Bureau in 19th, and John Dion in 20th.
And in 21st is Ian Wilson, followed by Matt Solblum, then Jeff Cantor in 23rd. Jeff Jacobson finishes P24, 3 laps down. Sammy Viljanen in 25th. Then we get to some cars that look like they were a DNF today. Steve Elson, 26th. Adam Bradshaw, 27th. Edward Doherty, 28th. Michael Shaw, 29th. Edgar Sancinelli, 30th. And the rest of the field, Wobold, 31st. Gehan, 32nd. Lindhoff, 33rd. And Nielsen, 34th. We've got our winner ready to talk to us, David Gaspers, joining us in the booth. David, 21 seconds back to Alejandro Lero, and it looked like nobody was really hassling you, especially after the first lap, but it wasn't a perfect race. Did you get a little scare there coming through along the backstretch chicane?
Yeah, that chicane is just stupid. As soon as you touch the left side exit curb, the car is done. But yeah, if you slow down a little there, it is safe most of the time, but sometimes it's just a little random.
So a bit foggy out there today and some cool temperatures. We saw some drivers struggle a little bit, it seemed, not with grip per se, but with the handling of the car. How do you set up a car when you get conditions like this?
The fog doesn't really change anything, I think. And we had similar temperatures all week, so I just used my Nordschleife setup since it has high ride height as well, and didn't change anything.
Regardless, this seemed to be something of a wild race out there. What about lap traffic? Was that any sort of a problem? Quite a few cars in a short lap.
Most of the people did a good job letting me by, but it's a little scary for the car behind when you have a lapped car in front of you in the chicane, even if they don't do anything wrong. For example, in the lap where I crashed and pitted because of it, I just had to slow down more for the chicane. Didn't really know what the car would do and hit the curb because of it. But it wasn't really the lap car's fault.
Well, regardless, I think you schooled the field today, and this makes you further untouchable in the points championship. Win number 4, sir. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That was David Gaspers, our winner out in the number 23 car. Up next, I have to imagine that Steph is talking to a very happy Alejandro Lero.
Well, Spec 2 winner in second place. You ain't gonna see that every day, but we saw it today. Alejandro, how do you feel after that impressive race?
I am very happy and very tired.
How come tired?
Concentration all the time. 40 minutes, there is no time to just take it easy, because then the chicane is coming and then you have to be ready. And yeah, I had a bit of a scare. It's so difficult. If you go too fast, then it bites you. If you go too slow, then it bites you also. So
yeah, you have such a narrow window through that chicane. Now, talk us through your preparation. How did you prepare, not for the track, but especially for that chicane?
well, I take a wide entry, and then I normally I would go full throttle until a couple of meters before the first curb, and then I clip the first curb, and then I try to feel the car and balance it towards the exit curb. And my setup is high enough so that if I go over the exit curb, it will not spin. So I lose a little bit of time all over the circuit because of that, but then I have a little bit of room on the chicane. That's how I approach this.
Well, next up, not so bitey, chicaney track like Charlotte. How are you looking for next week's challenge in the Spec Racer Ford?
I can't remember which race it is. I take it one race at a time, so I don't remember.
I did hope. I think it's Donington, if I remember correctly. Yes, it is Donington. We're gonna go to Donington.
Awesome track. I don't really know it that much. I haven't raced it at all, I think. I practiced a little bit last season with this car, and then I practiced a little bit with the Formula 3, but I have to learn it properly.
All right. Well, Alejandro Lero, before we let you go, anyone you want to thank who made this second place possible for you?
I would like to thank you guys for the for the broadcast, and I would like to say thanks to Steve and what's the name, Southeast Spec Racer, for sponsoring the series. It's been a great series so far.
Yeah, it's been a great series also for us to watch and commentate on. But yeah, that was Alejandro Lero there, your second place finisher. In also a winner in the Spec 2 class. And yeah, just an incredibly awesome and quite packed racing we saw today here.
Very action-packed, and I guess everybody's a little too embarrassed to come and talk to us after, because those are the only two interviews we have. So let's close up for today. And before we do, once again, a big thank you to our sponsors. The sponsor for the season, the official sponsor of Weekend Warriors, Southeast Spec Racer. You can find them at southeastspecracer.com, located in Daytona Beach, Florida. Also, Inspect a Ride. If you want to check out that free download, it is inspectoride.com/iRacing. Also, once again, a thank you goes out to iRacing, because they've brought us onto the iRacing Esports Network here for the Weekend Warriors. Make sure and subscribe to their channel so that you can see all kinds of other racing action with a variety of styles of cars and types of racing. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. And additional thanks go out to Eric at Coleman and June Lalonde, who provide our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get hold of more of their great work. Thanks to the team today, Steph, Amjad, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. You can also check us out on social media. We're on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. The next race, as was mentioned, we're going over to England for Donington. That'll be Sunday, February 24th at 2:45 p.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.